Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to the episode of my F1 2019 career mode, episode number 67 today for the Chinese Grand Prix in Season 4. If you guys did miss the previous one, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. A very exquisite race at the Bahrain Grand Prix, great strategy involved, but we come into Shanghai then with 2 upgrades on performance and 1 on the reliability, 2 minor upgrades on the chassis, only minor, but every little does kind of help here. Obviously, we're waiting on the 3 ultimate upgrades for the 2 aero and the engines to come in next episode of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, but still good progress to try and close the gap. And you can see there very clearly, you can see how close the grid is, because those 2 minors are actually quite a leap there to try and catch up to Williams and Alfa Romeo and Red Bull and Haas in that kind of mid-pack, I guess. But there's not really a mid-pack, really. It's all just one big pack because the field's so close. But we head into Shanghai then off the back of a brilliant strategy from the Bahrain Grand Prix, hoping we can do something similar again. But there is rain forecast for qualifying, so that might throw any kind of clever strategy out the window if everyone can choose a free choice of tyres to start the race on. We'll have to just see how it progresses. So let's get into Saturday then and see how we do over one lap here around Shanghai.
Welcome to Shanghai, China, for what I've no doubt is going to be a fantastic F1 qualifying session. I want to talk briefly about the strategy in these qualifying sessions. Anthony Davidson, how can a driver adjust their approach to gain those critical extra tenths of a second?
Well, qualifying isn't about adjusting your approach necessarily. It's more about trying to repeat a low fuel run that you've practiced prior to this session. You're looking for perfection on the lap, and that's hard to achieve if you're trying something new. There are some variables that can stand in your way, however. Track position or unexpected yellow flags, for example. Coupled with ever-changing track conditions, it's important to be out there at the right moment. But as a driver, you have to try and ignore these distractions and just keep your mind focused on that one perfect lap.
So heading to Saturday then, the forecast changed a little from what it started off as at the start of the race weekend. It was indicating it was going to rain the entirety of Saturday, but instead we've now moved it to dry, as you can clearly see in Q1, but the rain is very much coming at the end of this session, probably into Q2 and Q3, but getting a little bit frosty there with George Russell. I thought I was going to let him through for a lap there, and then he just goes and slows down there, so just let him know that I was a bit irked at that race start for me as we've gone for our first flying lap in Q1 then, and trying to see what we can do. This might be the only time we really get to see what this car can do in dry conditions here until we get to race day, obviously on heavier fuel, but a lot of understeer in the first turn there. You can see trying to get the front end kind of bit in there a little bit, and the car felt very heavy on the rear end there. It's a front limited circuit, but the rear end was seemingly the thing that was kind of limiting me in that kind of instance into turn 1, and so we go across the line up into P8 then, and we're going to try and go again just to try and improve our lap time. We're down to P12 at the moment, not really improved on this second flying lap there as we go wide and skate across the curb, just get the car back in a straight line and across the line. It's no improvement there for our second flyer. Thankfully though, that is going to be enough to get us through into Q2. Down in P13 though, a lot of time to find against Lewis Hamilton, but like I said, we don't have time for that now because it can start raining, and into Q2 we're on the intermediate. So if that was our actual raw dry pace, we might have a very tough time in Sunday. Hopefully not. Of course, track evolution, the fact that the AI ought to speed up at the end of the sessions, hopefully we're a little bit closer to Hamilton on paper in the dry. But now it's time to forget all that because now we're on the intermediates, and so it's anyone's game really. I don't know how this is going to work out in terms of how this car's going to perform. It's the first time I believe we've already done any kind of wet running on this car, so let's just see how it goes. At the moment, I was actually quite surprised going faster than Grosjean and Butler there. I thought my lap time was going to be woefully slow, but we're actually in P7 at the moment as it stands, and gaining a little bit of time there, losing a bit though on the exit of the hairpin, going a little bit wide with some understeer, but looking pretty decent right now in the top 10 actually. So could we just about maybe get a top 10? We're going to not come in, we're not going to finish that flying lap because you saw there on the top right, I was not going to improve my lap time. Like if I would, it would have been like a 100th of a second, which wouldn't have really mattered too much. So I came in, I thought we're just kind of see how it goes. We're sitting P7, maybe that's going to be enough to get us into the top 10 shootout. Alas, unfortunately, and probably I should have guessed it, it's not going to be. Our car is still not really at that level yet. Hamilton also gets knocked out. We're down to P15 then as the AI really sped up with the simulation times at the end of Q2, but Hamilton is also knocked out in Q2 in P13. So 2 places ahead of me. He'll start directly in front of me for the Grand Prix on Sunday, so it's not too bad. Annoying to be out-qualified by him, but more so it's annoying to see both of us knock down Q2, showing the car really isn't quite there exactly yet. But in the race, as we've shown the first 2 episodes, we seem to have much better race pace than we do in terms of qualifying 1-lap pace on Saturday. But let's just see how things pan out on Sunday. Let's go to the grid sequence and see how things panned out in Q3 and the full grid.
It's time to find out which driver is up to the task of claiming the Chinese Grand Prix. We're here in Shanghai. We start a lap here at Shanghai with the long, difficult right-handers of turns 1 and 2, the first of 16 corners that make up this 3.3-mile circuit. The incredibly long back straight provides the best passing opportunity of the lap, with speeds in excess of 200 miles per hour before the braking zone of turn 14. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Let's talk about the engineer. That was a great podium in the last race, so can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
There are never any guarantees in this business, but certainly the performance last time out would have boosted their confidence coming into this one.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Daniel Ricciardo starts from pole position today, edging out Devon Butler, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Hülkenberg, Giovinazzi, Sergio Perez, and Faber, Verstappen, Norris, Vettel, and Roman Grosjean. Stroll, Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and Magnussen. The engineer, Raikkonen, Valtteri Bottas, and Pierre Gasly. Leclerc and Daniel Kvyat completes the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
So no grid penalties to talk about then, so we remain in this P15 slot and we're starting on the medium compounder tyres, although everyone will probably be doing this strategy because everyone obviously qualified on intermediates in Q2, so that tyre rule that you have to start on that compound goes out the window. So unfortunately that probably limits anything clever that can be done by anyone really. Everyone will be doing this one stop, I imagine, from the mediums to the hard tyres there, because the softs are just so easy to kind of degrade very quickly in 4 or 5 laps pretty much. So I think everyone's doing this strategy, so it will just be about pure pace. So it might be a difficult race ahead of us, it might not. Let's just see how it goes then and hope that this car once again has better race pace. We go to 5 red lights for the Chinese Grand Prix. The third round of season 4 is underway, and it's initially a good getaway compared to Kevin Magnussen, but then getting bogged down in 3rd and 4th gear, surprisingly, blocking off Valtteri Bottas there even, and Raikkonen gets us into turn 1. We go around the outside, hitting a lot of understeer though, and Sebastian Vettel on the left hand side, understeered cleanly off the circuit there. I think he got hit by Verstappen, potentially I think that was, in the Renault car, and spewed off on the left. He's got back on circuit though, but now he's in last place, and his teammate now has fallen victim to myself. We're up into P13, Hamilton P12, so all in all not too bad of a start, I guess. We gained 2 positions in the end into turn 2, but that initial getaway was surprisingly not that great for us, to say that everyone's on the same compound tyre really. But now we find ourselves behind our teammate Lewis Hamilton, trying to do the best job we can of overtaking him and maybe the others. But there's a bit of a train forming here, as you've got one of the Ferrari cars that I imagine probably had a bit of a glitched Q3 time. That's found himself a little bit higher than he probably should be, because the Ferrari team are lower than us on paper on the R&D chart, so I can't really imagine they should have the actual pace to be right up there. So I think like we had at Bahrain and Australia, there will be a bit of a concertina effect basically, and a bit of bunching up there due to those slower cars having to filter through. And you can see getting a little bit caught up behind Hamilton there on lap number 3. This is into the hairpin. Kind of weird, I'm unable to really keep with him in sector 2, but then into that brake zone at the hairpin, getting so much more time, and I feel like we're just going to have to try and go for a dive at some point on Hamilton, otherwise we won't get the pass done. I mean, that's the issue, unfortunately, with this game, is the only major thing still is that the AI sometimes are unable to really just go for the move. They're aggressive, but when they get in a DRS train like this, much like the F1 Esports series as well, sometimes you just can't break that DRS train and actually make a move and make it stick, as the dirty air, the slipstream also comes into play. But here we go now onto lap number 5, practically pushing Hamilton through that long right-hander. So it's taken 2 more laps for us to wind up this pass. We're going to go for it. Hamilton goes defensive to the right-hand side. We're going to have none of it and go to his further inside there and force to kind of move through on the right-hand side. Going to have to try and squeeze him out on the exit, as he's still very much there, but cut across the racing line, and we get up into P12 of this GP. But not too much of a fight Hamilton putting up there, to be fair. Probably clever not to, because now I've got to try and overtake some cars, and if I don't, he has a good chance to try and maybe re-overtake me. And actually a good point there, you can see Magnussen is pulling out as well, as Hamilton is right up my gearbox, then sticks with me at DRS, so he's actually looking funny enough faster straight away as soon as I overtake him, which is a lot like when it comes to me and when AI overtake me. Sometimes I definitely race a little bit better when I have a car ahead of me to follow, rather than just clean air and just my own lap time to try and face. But now we move on to lap number 6 now, getting on the back of Lance Stroll. We have got a bit of a space between ourselves and Hamilton, and I'm looking likely to overtake Stroll, because he's not really hanging about on the rear end of Russell too much. And just as we go through the lap, finding more confidence in the car in sector 3 and into the kind of wind up for the last long straight, again we can have a good slingshot attempt at Stroll into the hairpin, as my engineer asked me for a change of strategy. I want to stick to what I had on lap 13. Don't know why he's asked me to go longer into the Grand Prix, because if anything, I'm feeling the tyre wear a little bit right now on the medium. So we're going to go for a massive dive bomb on Lance Stroll there, taking a leaf out of our book from the Australian Grand Prix and using the good braking effect in this Mercedes car to good use up into P11 there, making the moves, and a very Ricciardo-esque move that was. And so we're up into P11 now, one place off the points-paying positions there. George Russell up next, the man I had a bit of a kerfuffle with in Q1, and again, the same exact spot as we go through to the main straight. This time, get even closer to George Russell, and again, like with Hamilton, almost having to push him through that corner if we went any closer to him here. And even before we get to DRS, we'll close up to him here with just the natural slipstream of the Mercedes versus the Ferrari. And so we go through on the left-hand side, and we're going to be up into P10. And up ahead of us, though, is a tasty fight between the Haas and the other Ferrari of Daniel Ricciardo, and also Lando Norris in the McLaren, and Verstappen in the Renault being held up here. Remember, Renault are probably one of the fastest teams on the grid, so Verstappen being stuck behind these three cars is very surprising indeed. But that might just change his lap as Norris has a little look on the left-hand side, gets shut down, though, by the Ferrari, and instead it's Verstappen down the inside of the Haas and McLaren there to make a double overtake, maybe even triple overtake, as he goes down the inside of the Ferrari as well. So, as I mentioned, the very moment I mentioned Verstappen being in the fastest car available, he goes ahead and shows maybe why that is, as he goes to overtake three cars, and he's still side by side with the Ferrari. We're now on the back of Romain Grosjean, so this fighting has helped us out, because all these guys are slowing each other down, and so that's the perfect storm for us to catch up there. We actually hit Norris a little bit on the rear end there as he goes so slow through that apex there, watching with, I'm sure, a bucket of popcorn here. Ricciardo v Verstappen here, these two former Red Bull teammates going hammer and tong now. Look at that. They've been side by side for pretty much this entire lap so far. As we go towards the end of Sector 2 then, they're still neck and neck through that double left-hander. Ricciardo squeezes him out. Norris gets held up and slowed down by Verstappen, having to slow after getting squeezed up by Ricciardo. We go from left to right there, hustling and harrying Lando Norris, our fellow countryman, and we get the move done up into P8. So it's been a fantastic sequence of corners, and the last 2-3 laps for us, the car has come alive, our race has come alive, and we're now firmly in the points-paying positions at the bottom end. And can we now try and chase after Verstappen there? Mercedes v Renault power. The Renault may have all the pace in the corners, but the engine power is still there with the Mercedes car. We're going to have a little look on the left-hand side. Tiny bit of contact made as Verstappen makes it a little bit awkward, as he wants to also try and overtake Ricciardo. At the same time, I want to overtake him, but we get the job done on the outside of the hairpin, and we're up into P7. And now we'll get on the back of Ricciardo in the Ferrari and do maybe what Verstappen couldn't finish off and get the move done into turn 1 onto lap number 10. DRS open to the inside, nice and punchy on the brakes. They're going to have to try and now squeeze him out and feed the car wide and just make sure he doesn't get a jump on us on the inside of turn 2. We do that successfully, and we're up the position as Verstappen now is still going at it there, side by side with Lando Norris. That is now both those cars, really, both the Renault and McLaren should be right up there fighting for the podiums or the top 4 positions, not really stuck here behind the Ferrari car. So it's been like that for pretty much all races so far. Ferrari have just gotten so lucky with these kind of glitched qualifying simulations that they just keep finding themselves further up the grid, and it seems like the Ferrari car is a very difficult car to actually pass with the dirty air. At least for the AI, it's difficult for them to pass, I've noticed there, compared to maybe Hamilton. I mean, you look at the way Hamilton fell back way, You look at you cast your minds back to 2 episodes ago, the way Hamilton fell through the field at the opening round of this season, compared to how the Ferraris have held on to this P7 for so long there. So it's kind of interesting just to see that kind of difference in that then. But as we move on then later on into the Grand Prix, lap number 12, this is Lando Norris is closing up to us now. He's overtaking Verstappen, he's overtaking Ricciardo, and now we clean air. He's chasing after me. We're going to actually let him through on purpose here on the left-hand side. They do a bit of a wily old fox move. We know the DRS activation point is later on. The detection point was just there through that right-hander, so we're going to get DRS off Lando Norris. And like I mentioned with the Renault pass, you know, this car may not be quite there yet with the aero and the chassis, but it very much still is one of the best engines on the grid, and the Mercedes car is going to be able to just power past Lando Norris once again with DRS there on the right-hand side up into P6. So go again, we have to go a little bit aggressive there on the hairpin and do a bit of a Nico Rosberg to Lando Norris and go straight on purpose, trying to squeeze him out there, and a bit of a contact made, but Norris was being very, very stubborn and wanting to give up that position, even though I very much had the corner there, so I had to do a bit of aggression there. But we're up into P6 once again, and hopefully now we can try and keep this through till the pit stop window, which will be actually just now on this lap 13. Norris will come knocking again. This time I haven't played any kind of game because I'm going to come in at the end of this lap, so if he overtakes me, there's no real point fighting it too much, because if he's on the left hand side here, this will be perfect. I'm going to be on the right hand side. I can just go straight on into the pit lane there, but he doesn't actually finish the move there, so he sticks behind us. But we're going to come straight in now, on for a set of hard tyres. Of course, Norris continues on. Verstappen will join us into the pit lane there, wanting to get an undercut on the cars around us, including the 2 Ferraris and also my teammate somewhere in there. But okay, so far, looks like we're about P7 or 8. It's been a decent Grand Prix, I would say. In terms of where the car is in terms of pace, I feel like that's probably where we would have been aiming, I think, from P15 and P13, myself and Hamilton there. But you've got the likes of Giovinazzi and the Haas who are ahead of me on track. He was up in a very lofty P5, and we were able to fully race and overtake Giovinazzi last race. So I think P5 is still on the cards, maybe, if we have good enough pace on the hard tyres versus Giovinazzi as we go on through this Grand Prix. So speaking of that, we move on now towards lap number 15 then. So over halfway now gone through this GP. Finally now you've got the whole gaggle of cars coming into the pit lane then, and so we back up into P6. Giovinazzi, like I mentioned, is there in P5, and he's actually a lot closer visually now. I can see him there into turn 2, so we gained a lot of time actually on that undercut compared to him, and he's not too good on those hard tyres, it would seem. And so as we come through to the end of lap number 16 then, into the hairpin, closing right up to Giovinazzi, and so we will have DRS onto the main straight into turn 1. I imagine we can maybe try and make a pass. We've got some ERS to play around with as well, and so we're going to flick this up into hot lap mode and then overtake once we get to 7th gear. DRS open, and so here we go, gaining and gaining on the Italian in the American car. Down the inside we go into turn 1. It's a little bit dangerous there for us, so we bang tyres on the front left and the front right for him as we understeer kind of into him, and Gio also didn't give us too much room on the inside there. We get the move done, but I imagine Gio's maybe not going to be too happy with that pass. That was a little bit hairy, but I wasn't really picturing the car understeering that much into turn 1, to be honest. But I guess maybe with the dirty air just lost a little bit of front end grip there. But we're up into P5. We actually have set the fast lap of the Grand Prix as we chase after Gio, so we've actually had some very decent pace on the hard tyres. But as we go on through this next phase to the end of the Grand Prix, then Norris and Verstappen now have overtaken Giovinazzi then, and Norris is now on the back of myself. Verstappen's also not too far behind there. As I said, they are in faster cars, so I would expect them to come knocking. It's about if we can try and keep them at bay as we go through into the end of sector 1. We go defensive to the inside there, and Norris has a very good lunge around the outside. I have to lock up on the front right tyre. That's how late I had to try and brake there, and the car just about only managed to get it stopped through for that right-hander. So Norris has a very good attempt there, and just has to show that I'm going to have to really pull up my socks to try and defend this position, because these cars behind me are so good under braking as well compared to me. It's not like I'm trying to overtake a Racing Point car or a Williams car. I'm trying to overtake, or keep behind rather, a McLaren and a Renault that are now some of the best cars on the grid here. So again, we go defensive to the inside there, have to block off Norris, and that's a little bit awkward for him because that invites Verstappen around the outside there, so that's going to help me out. Those two are fighting each other, but alas, I think what's probably going to happen is on the main straight here, they might have me for chips here, because I'm going to be a sitting duck. No DRS for me, DRS for Norris and Verstappen here, so here they come, both of them there in tandem with DRS training each other. Norris on the right, Verstappen even also on the right, so it's a double overtake for them on me essentially. I go a little bit early on the brakes, try and cut into the inside and try and switch it back to the right hand side. Doesn't really work out as Norris holds the line on the left hand side, and we didn't get a good enough exit as I hoped for, but Verstappen locks up into the last corner there, made some contact there with Norris on the rear end, so we get it back down the inside and we're back up into P6. So little rare mistake there from Verstappen, and so we're gifted P6 for the moment. But as we move on through to the back straight once more on lap 24 then, Verstappen's going to come knocking again, and Norris has basically waltzed away from us in sectors 1 and 2 there, so you can see the true pace of the McLaren. And Renault, here he comes now, Verstappen on the left hand side for maybe the third time now, trying to overtake us here, and he gets it done. He cuts across us very aggressively indeed. But we've actually got a decent amount of ERS to play around with, you can see on the bottom right, and as we go on to the next lap, we will be obviously getting DRS back off Verstappen as there is a new detection point and activation zone. So here we go, DRS open, and we might just be able to repass the Dutchman into turn 1. It'll be close, we don't gain so much into turn 1, but there we go, we're going to go for it there. Little bit of contact made on the left hand side, but Verstappen gives us the room as he understeers a little bit, and we get it back up into P6. But as we defend the position, we skirt the throttle way too much, go wide there, and Verstappen's down on our inside. He makes some contact with us, and he shoved this off there. It was hardly much of a tap, but the momentum that both our cars had has shoved this cleanly off the road into the gravel trap, and so we're down to P8 now. Giovinazzi has unfortunately got past us as well, and now we've got gravel on our tyres. The tyres aren't going to be exactly as grippy as they once were, and so now we've got to contend with George Russell being right up a chuff as we move on to the next lap now, onto lap 26, and the Ferrari is looking pacey now for some reason compared to us. I really think the tyres are really being affected by that gravel. It's still not fully cleared up, and is giving us the maximum grip that we would have hoped for. As we can see, we're just having to hang on to this P8 now, as the Ferrari looks really good into this first few turns as Russell's right up our exit there. And again, a lot of understeer on that left hand as we go down the crest towards the end of Sector 1. And Russell, he goes for the move in before the brakes are on the left-hand side. And I try my best to outbrake him there, but he just has it under me and then chops me off very aggressively, makes some contact with me there and got a little bit rude, to be honest, in my opinion. So we're down to P9, so it's all really come crashing down a little bit in these last 2 laps there. That contact with Verstappen and the trip to the gravel trap massively hurt us there, losing 2 positions and now 3. But Russell's got an issue. Yellow flags for George Russell, so maybe some karma coming back to me for that overly aggressive overtake he made on us. And so we're back up into P8 there, but okay, yeah, very weird few laps there, I must say, for the Chinese Grand Prix. But George Russell there, confirmation, he is out of the Chinese Grand Prix. We're back up into P8, but I think that's pretty much where we're going to have to settle for, unfortunately, because Giovinazzi's, well, miles away from us now because we lost so much time in the gravel trap there. So Lucas Weber will win the 3rd race of the season, his 2nd win of the season, of course, because he won the Australian Grand Prix. At one point in this Grand Prix, it was looking like a very tasty P5 again. Alas, it was P6 then with Norris overtaking us. And then I really thought we could have maybe hung on to P6 there as I overtook Verstappen on the inside of turn 1. I thought, you know, I can actually have him here and maybe just hold off on him. And then a little bit of contact. Wasn't even that much contact, to be honest. So I'm not going to really fully blame Verstappen, but he did hit us. But it really wasn't that much of a tap, really. But the momentum we both have, obviously accelerating quite hard off that corner. And the nature of that corner anyway is quite slidey. It just sent our car spewing off into the gravel trap. And we lost even more time then with Giovinazzi overtaking us. So in the end, from what was going to be a pretty decent Grand Prix result, I would say, all things considered, it's now turned into a rather annoying finish here. Only P8 then to show for it.
Okay, good job, mate. Really well done. That was a fantastic drive.
It was a magnificent race and a drive right out of the top draw to take the win for Renault. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
I think a large part of the result comes down to temperament. They were able to keep their heads when everyone around them was losing theirs, and that's allowed them to get the best out of the car, to maximise the strategy and to stay out of trouble.
As we can see, it's time for the podium, and I can see the Renault team underneath our commentary box going crazy as their drivers walk out. It was a great win, and it means a great deal to this team.
Well, I'm frustrated with P8. Hamilton will be frustrated with no points today. P11 for him. He just got stuck in traffic, really. That was honestly the story of Lewis Hamilton. He just couldn't overtake. Like, that entire first stint, he didn't overtake a single car. So that was really poor. It's really unfortunate, actually, because the AI are a lot better this year, a lot more aggressive, but they definitely do get held up a lot in those DRS trains, especially when you get into later seasons of career mode, when all the cars are so quick in a straight line with slipstream and the DRS. With the upgrades, they do tend to get stuck a little bit in those DRS trains, which is unfortunate to see for my team at Hamilton. But as a team then, we moved down to P5, McLaren up into P3, Red Bull up into P4, they maintain P4, and Racing Point get toppled by Renault. Renault definitely look like the best team on the grid. I mean, Racing Point won the last race, but as a whole, Renault have shown they've got the outright pace, I think, and Weber and Verstappen are probably the 2 likely ones that will be challenging for the title early on at this stage. But you've got to say that Racing Point and McLaren look quick at times. It's just kind of weird to see sometimes the likes of Norris and Verstappen down there like you saw today in the Grand Prix before they overtook us. But yeah, for us, that's yeah, it's a bit of a shame, really. I thought it was going to be a good result, and then, yeah, just things happen sometimes in Grand Prix racing. It was a bit of a mistake by me to squirt the throttle into turn 2. That put me wide, and then Verstappen definitely kind of went out a little bit too wide, in my opinion, and then we made some contact, and then, well, obviously, gravel trap's the gravel trap. If I put my foot down any harder in the gravel trap, I probably would have spun the car there, so we had to just kind of go quietly back onto track and keep it in a straight line, so that lost us position to Giovinazzi as well. But like I said, that kind of comes and goes sometimes in a Grand Prix season. I'm sure we'll get some good luck later on at some point, maybe. But next episode, we have 3 ultimate upgrades to come in. So that should be technically a very tasty episode coming up next time at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. But guys, if you did enjoy this one nonetheless, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here to subscribe for weekly full-on content, I've been Aarava. Hope you should stay. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.